what has been New York's response to that, and what guidance again are we, but specifically on Title IX, are we giving to school leaders, Daniel?
Yeah. So I will say that SED's issued two statements thus far, one on these executive orders generally, and the other on transgender students' rights, which does touch upon this Title IX issue. So there's a number of things going on with Title IX that, the administration's doing, trying to do or say multiple things at the same time. So one that they're saying is fairly uncontroversial, which is the Biden era Title IX regulations, which were put out by USDOE, went out for comment, and were challenged. That they're saying we hereby rescind those and we want to go back to the ones we had in place prior to that. So that's a pretty uncontroversial position. The scope of that litigation and maybe some of the errors made by courts along the way, I won't get into too much, but the main thing that these courts found across the country was you went one step too far as the federal government trying to define sex. So then, ironically, the administration is also trying to redefine sex, which is the same thing that they were complaining about the Biden USDOE doing. Now they're trying to do that through executive order, saying, well, guess what? Now we have a new definition of sex. So that attempt you can just ignore, in that if they want to take a federal law, which is Title IX, and make a contrary interpretation, they will need to do what the Biden administration did, which is publish a proposed rule, get comment from stakeholders and states, and then reach a final rule that can be challenged in court.
So bottom line for New York State is status quo. We are continuing to protect all of our students under the current regulations.
Yes, and I should say that the Title IX regulations are massive, and most of them have to do with the paradigm is college campus sexual assault. It still applies to K-12 schools, but you'll note there's a number of provisions in those regulations saying, well, you have some discretion here if you're in a K-12 school, given the age of students and their maturity level. So that's the paradigm of those regulations. And I don't know a percentage, but 90% of it is kind of related to that process. And then the new Biden era one had this. Oh, and sex, by the way, includes transgender people and non-binary people. But all of New York state law protections, in the human rights law, those were in effect even under the old Title IX rule from the Trump administration. So those remain untouched, and you can think about it as a floor ceiling issue that the federal law is establishing base protections for certain instances involving sex-based interactions and harassment, and state law exceeds that.